Hey guys, I am so sorry. It has been 4 days since my last video, but I have been on a very impromptu little holiday. I had a great time. I was still watching the charts and active on the Discords that I'm in. However, I was not making YouTube videos. Now, what has happened in the last few days? Let's catch everything back up. Well, on the monthly time frame, we are still above the 50% level of the bear market low to current all-time high. The monthly BX trender has been flirting between a lower low and a higher low. So obviously, with around a week still to go, we'll just have to see how this closes. The weekly time frame, we have broken the high of last week's candle or bar, depending on what your chart is set to. So my analysis did end up playing out. We did see 6 light green weeks on the BX trender, and what more is there to talk about? Now I'm just going to have to flip the chart over to light mode quickly so you can see the lines. I apologize for your eyes, but you can clearly see here my thesis is still in play. Obviously, being a weekly chart, this thesis is going to take months to play out. I predicted a high for this week that would be between about 78.3 and around 84,000, most likely under roughly 80,600. Now I'm just going to put it back to dark mode because, as you can see, it is nighttime where I am. Now, popping, sorry, I've already done that. On the daily time frame, you can see my last video was made on this bar, the 17th of April bar, and I am going to have to readjust my Fibonacci retracement because we have made a new high today. Not by much, but it looks like with the US stock market pre-market looking great, when the actual session opens, if we can get some nice upwards price action, that would be great. So what has happened? Well, price, that bar right there had all the marks of a buyer exhaustion bar. I think we had, was it like $600 million of short liquidations or something? And we did get a pretty savage sell-off. That was what, like 7-8%? I'll just draw a, whatever this is, price range measuring tool. It is late at night, please excuse me, my maths is bad, 5.88%. But you can see where we sold off to. We sold off exactly to that trend line, and we held it as support. And I don't know how valid this pattern is, but I'm starting to see a bit of a cup and handle formation. It might not look great. I'm just gonna have to use white because for once I'm using dark mode, but I see a bit of a cup and a handle right here. Now, those of you that are chart pattern experts will tell me that it is not a valid pattern because of this, this, and this. And you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe because the pattern isn't valid, it doesn't play out as nicely. And we see a fake move up to 80k and then a savage sell-off back to wherever. Now, before I start getting any bears excited, for as long as this trendline support holds, we've got to respect it as support. And I remember how loud the bears were on the 19th of April. Even myself, I was feeling bearish, but I didn't add to my short simply because this trend line was still holding. I do massively regret not adding to my long, but it is what it is. We'll jump down to the 4-hour time frame, and you can see that sell-off on the 20th of April, my time, so it might have been the night of the 19th of April for you guys in the US, the close of the Monday stock market session. I believe something happened with Iran. I mean, all this price action here has to do with Iran, Trump, Pakistan, Israel, whatever. But that low there came underneath the wave 1 top here. I was saying in my last video, we need to see consolidation above $76,000. Maybe a wick down to, 75.3 or so. which we initially saw about here. I mean, on a 4-hour Elliot Wave count, I think breaching the low by, less than 0.5%, I'd give it a bit of leeway. But unfortunately, we did end up very much invalidating that wave count. So therefore, it is not valid anymore. And I have instead drawn up a alternate wave count, which looks something like this. Now, bear with me for a second. If we just focus on the white lines, ever since we had that diagonal 4th time breakout that I talked about on this channel and in the discords that I'm in, we have seen, if we look at it like this, a wave 1 up to roughly the peak over the 11-12 April weekend, depending on your time zone. We sold off back down to around $70,500, respected the trend line, and that was our wave 2 correction. Our wave 3 move up reached the previous peak where my last video was made, the 18th of April, and that wave 4 correction pretty much touched that wave 1 peak exactly, validating my Elliot Wave count. And we are now in the process of a wave 5, which I believe lines up a lot better with my timing analysis as well, because if my previous wave count were to be correct, then for this to be a wave 1, 2, 3, we would need to see another wave 4 correction and another wave 5 leg up, which would probably take price above the $80,500-ish range that I was predicting as the highs. And as you may remember in my last few videos, I was saying that something didn't look right about that wave count. And if you do watch Jason Pizzino over on YouTube, you'll know, or Michael Pizzino as well for that matter, they've been talking about time analysis where April is up and May is potentially down. Remember, sell in May, go away. So maybe the first few days of May grind sideways and then we sell off. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. May is traditionally a topping month for stocks and crypto. So if that previous wave count were to be correct, if I just undo that, then you can see my wave count would probably, for everything to be balanced, it would probably have to run out well and truly into a bit too far into May for my liking, I would say. So therefore, I do believe my new Elliot Wave count is a lot more valid. Now, if I just hide this white structure and we can focus on the substructure, you can see we had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through to the 12th of April. That whole move respects Elliot Wave counts. Wave 4 came in just above the top of wave 1. We saw this ABC correction through the 12th, 13th-ish of April. Obviously, all this is in my time zone, so it may not line up exactly on your chart. And this one, I didn't really like this wave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just because it's not really balanced, but it does make sense in terms of Elliot Wave rules, that wave 1 peak is below this wave 4 bottom, and obviously in this correction here, you can see in a lot of these earlier corrections, we saw a pretty nice ABC move, or ABC, because the swing is drawn onto that bar, not that bar. But this correction through here looked a lot more messy than an ABC, so it was potentially a WXY or a WXYXZ correction or something along those lines. Whilst this correction here, you may have had to jump down to like a 1 hour chart to actually draw an ABC or whatever. But let's not get into the nuances of that. We have two very nice ABC corrections, where this one is for our wave 4 down, which you can see on my chart here. It just broke below the trend line, got all the bears excited, and then we reversed. We back tested that trend line on the next candle, and then we back tested it again today, and off to the races for now. So where do I think we are right now? Well, I think we're in a wave 3 of a wave 5. And, whoops, I meant to draw that. Is it? Was it this one? Yep, that one that I was meant to draw. So I believe we're in a wave 3 of a wave 5, which means technically we've already validated this wave 3 count, because this wave 3 and 5 count, because we have broken above this top here. And if you've been watching Michael's channel for long enough, you'll know that the top can technically come at any moment now. So therefore, I will be managing my stop loss positions, taking partial profits, etc., etc. I would not be starting any new long positions here, simply because if you watch any of, Jason's videos or Michael's videos, you'll see that we're pretty close to having a balanced correction, where this correction here is pretty much the same as this correction here, in terms of price. Now, obviously, this correction here has gone a bit longer in terms of time, so we have seen an overbalance in time and price, which, if you remember my theory, means that this next leg down, I showed this in the last video, is probably not going to be as severe as the as the previous two legs down, because I'll just recap again in this video. Elliot Wave analysis suggests that if this was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 correction, you can see I've drawn that in black. I don't want to turn the chart back to light mode, so you're just going to have to imagine that it's there. Because this wave 3 down was smaller than the wave 1 down, this wave 5 down therefore has to be even smaller than the wave 3 down. And since we've made a new high, not by much, where was this high? 78.9? No, we weren't that high. We were about 78.4, I think, was where we reached. Having a lot of trouble placing it there. There we go. So the bottom is now around $40,300. Obviously, that's going to vary depending on exactly what exchange/chart you're looking at. But basically, I believe for this Elliott Wave count to be valid, we will not see below $40,000 this cycle. And as we know, the wave 3 and 5 aren't usually the same length, because typically only corrective waves are the same length. Impulsive waves tend to vary a bit in length. So if this wave were to be shorter, like I suspect it to be, and if we rotate the angle slightly, so even if we were to just straight dump from next week, as I showed in the 2022 fractal, where are we? Right here, where we saw a bit of a move up, I think 3 weeks up. We got our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 week green on the BX trender, and then we just nuked next week. So let's say Iran and Trump take the war nuclear or whatever. Something catastrophic happens. I'm not hoping for that to happen, of course. I don't want half the world to be destroyed, but if something like that were to happen, and next week were to be a crazy sell-off, I don't expect Bitcoin to go underneath $40,000 to $44,000-ish. And obviously, if we are to just grind out instead of going straight down, then I would expect price to potentially bottom closer to $50,000 than $40,000. And as for the rest of my analysis, the USDT dominance, you can see our THT combined signal indicator has not really changed. It is still expecting a move up to 10.086%, which lines up with the analysis in the last few videos that I've been talking about. One thing to note is we are getting into that oversold territory for the USDT dominance. You can see typically when the stochastic RSI is this low, we're forming a basing pattern. So maybe, next week we go a tiny bit lower, Bitcoin goes a tiny bit higher, but I think the base is pretty much in. So maybe, next week we test 7%, but I do believe this 6.7% is looking less and less likely. And as always, keep your eyes on this Elliot Wave pattern, and we'll see if we do end up getting a wave 3, 4, 5 correction. But just before I go, I haven't done this yet, but I'm just going to test to see the length of each of these moves. So that wave 3 is shorter than the wave 1, which means our wave 5 is going to have to be shorter than the wave 3, which, if I were to draw it at the same angle, would take us to $81,100, which is only a couple $100 higher than where I'm predicting it to go. And obviously, the wave 5 can be shorter. So if we hit 80,000, 80,300, that would be pretty perfect in my opinion. Now, where this wave 3 and 4 ends up being, I guess doesn't really matter that much, because that's a micro count rather than a macro count. Obviously, I'm saying macro based on a 4-hour time frame. I am still looking towards that 2x deviation band as being a major top if we do hit it. However, it doesn't look like price has moved up aggressively enough to tap that. And because that band is now at $83,000, we may not actually tap that before rolling over into the next leg down. So I would be looking towards that 1x deviation band on the 4-hour, which is sitting just shy of $80,000. So maybe if we, pierce through it a little bit, hit, 80,100 or something, kind of like we did back here on Friday's session. If something like that happens, I would be inclined to say that this rally is pretty much over. And this is coupled with the fact that Traders Helping Traders, Peter DiCarlo on X, has been saying the S&P 500 looks like it wants to pause or correct a little bit. So, all the stars are kind of aligning. On that 1-hour time frame, not much to talk about. With the amount of volatility that's going on, like the 1 hour and 15-minute time frame has just been wild moves that it's not even worth talking about on YouTube. I do talk about a bit over on Discord with my friends in the communities over there. But if we have a quick jump, oh my god, this doesn't have a dark mode, to the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index, you can see we have climbed out of extreme fear, which Jason talks about in his YouTube videos. I'll just let him talk about it rather than repeat his analysis. But one thing to note is, even though we've seen a decent move up today, the long-short ratio is not that skewed towards the long side yet, and the short liquidations aren't piling up massively yet. You can see when we had that last move up, we saw $580 million of short liquidations. So I would think if we were to see that $400 to $600 million of liquidations again on the short side, then that top is looking very likely to be in for this rally. Now, if I jump over to the liquidation and max pain chart, and we ignore the shorter term timeframes and just stick to the 1 month, you can see the long max pain has moved up from, I think, about 66,000 or 70? It moved from 66 to 70,000, and then it moved to like 73,000. The last time the long max pain did something like that was through here, I believe. Through here. Maybe here as well, where a couple hours beforehand, you saw the max pain move up many thousands of dollars. It gets hit, and then market immediately reverses. So that could be, you know, insiders positioning themselves ahead of a expected news announcement. Obviously, you know, these dumps have all been news announcements. I'm pretty sure it was this one, yeah, where long max pain moved from like 66k to like 71k, then it gets hit like 8 hours later, and then the market reverses. So, and always, you know, that level is always underneath the previous stop losses. Actually, I think it was here on Thursday. I can't remember, but typically they'll take out a previous swing low or something where everyone's had their stop losses, and then the market reverses. Like you can see through here, you know, everyone bought the dip here and here, dips a little bit further, reverses. Same here, everyone bought the dip here, dips a little bit further, reverses. It didn't actually happen much here. I mean, I guess you could say it took out this little dip here. So something like that were to happen, you know, I probably wouldn't be very happy that this Elliot Wave structure is invalidated. But for now, it almost feels like, based on the funding rates, that maximum pain is, yeah, funding rate's still negative. So I don't think we need to grab liquidity one more time. What I think is more likely to happen is we take out the liquidation max pain to the long side, to the upside, which is the short max pain. Price comes to, you know, $79,000 or something. And the long max pain moves up. We grab the liquidity to the downside, wherever that ends up being. So it might end up being, you know, 77k, 77.5. And then we shoot off for a final leg up. Now, you always have to remember, these final wave 3s and 5s can be really small. So it could look something like what happened here. That wave 5 does not have to be a monster move up. So maybe this wave 3 peak taps this standard deviation band at 79.6. We pull back slightly, hold that previous top as support, and then we just breach 80k, get everyone excited, and then the market absolutely tanks. Anyways, that's pretty much it for me tonight. I probably spent, you know, 20 something minutes explaining something that could have been explained in 2 minutes, but thank you very much for sticking with me for this video, and please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will get back to regular videos from tomorrow. Goodbye.